Welcome to Fluorescene.
Hello, welcome to Fluorescene Show, Episode 7. I'm your host, Dr. Alan Glazier, and this week in Odie's on Facebook, and it was quite a week, a member posts, my last patient told me she's a Wiccan and a practicing witch. She has both degrees, but wanted to clarify that she's not psychic. Phew, thank goodness she clarified that, otherwise I would have thought she was crazy. The patient couldn't answer a question to save her life. Then she complained about being night blind. Night blindness is an affliction also known as being human, in my opinion. There were no clinical findings to support a night blindness claim. The doc refused and now is concerned about having a spell cast on her. So she decided to start eating garlic at lunch just in case. She shouldn't worry though. The witch is probably too busy at the dentist complaining about how her tongue is taste sensitive. A member says if she's a witch, can't she just do a spell to fix her night blindness? I know, right? Another member says, be sure you document that you said to take an Uber to any nighttime witch soirees. And another doc asks, you could have gotten rid of her by telling her she was at the wrong doctor. She needs a witch doctor. An entrepreneurial doc said, treat her, but in lieu of insurance, ask for this week's lottery numbers. See, doc? You're thinking. Good business head. Others wanted to know why she needs to drive anywhere. Why didn't she just use her broom? Really? And the winner was, what was my mother-in-law doing in your practice? A doc posted this pic and asked, does anyone else see it? The doc adds, I swear, I totally wasn't taking photos of the wall while doing the exam. Hashtag Mandalorian. 1,000 likes later, there were all sorts of comments, like, this is the way. And someone chimed in, this is a OptiFree advertisement in the making for May 4th. Another doc said, I feel ya, and posted this picture saying, I see Alfred Hitchcock on my ceiling every morning. Man, that's nothing. You guys have it easy. At least you don't have the ghost of an owl lurking in your office. Yes, this is in my office. A doc posts, I had a wonderful one today, and you know this is going to be bad. The encounter went like this. The doc said, how can I help you? And the patient replied with just one word, exam. And the doc asked, you need an exam or do you have an appointment for an exam? The patient replied, does it look like I have an appointment? Exam. And the doc patiently responded, I am not entirely sure what it looks like to have an appointment. Help me out here. Are we going through insurance? To which the patient emphatically responded, I just said exam, stupid. Whoa. The doc said, yes. You're looking for the exam portion. I got you, fella. Go back the way you came, get into your car, and find another doc that'll allow you to speak to anyone in the way that you're speaking to me and my staff. Patient said, my insurance. The doc responded, we don't take it. And the patient said, you don't even know what it is. The doc responded, I assure you, we don't take it. This guy kind of reminds me of a toddler. We can't guess what he wants. He yells a lot and throws tantrums in public places. This guy must have missed his nap that day. That's my guess. Most docs agreed. It was great that the doc stood up for herself and the staff. One doc added that his optician of 40 years would say, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. Another doc added, this is why I'm happy we are still keeping our doors locked. Eventually, the doc hit the abort switch, kicking the guy out. And that's okay, though. That guy's got a long day ahead of him. He's headed to the bank, and there he's going to make a withdrawal by yelling, money, to the teller. On a serious note, advice from a clinician who's been at it for 30 years and has seen every type of behavior multiple times and then some. It's always a fine balance when your business is caring for people, when you're a healthcare worker. When you witness this kind of behavior, it's human nature to think it's about you or someone trying to take advantage of you or give you a hard time. Most of the time, however, it's not. Don't discount mental illness as an underlying cause of this type of behavior. An estimated 26% of Americans aged 18 and older, about 1 in 4 adults, suffer from a diagnosable mental disorder. And this isn't a given year. Many people suffer from more than one mental disorder at a given time. You might also be dealing with drug use or abuse that is the primary issue, or exacerbating existing mental illness. Even stroke can change someone's personality or behavior abruptly, and we handle stroke. No matter what the reason, abuse is rarely perpetrated on a caregiver without there being some type of underlying mental illness. I've seen patients come in raging one day and sweet as pudding pie the next. Before you react, step away for a few minutes, step out of the situation, compose yourself. You should always assume there is something more going on than meets the eye. And as this doctor did, set firm boundaries for behavior and stick to them. Respect for all patients, regardless of their mental state, is imperative. And if these steps don't bring a resolution to the situation, always document and fire the patient professionally, in writing, with written recommendations on where they might receive future care. Now, this post was absolutely brutal. A 38-year-old male presents to clinic for superglued finger to eyelid. Turns out he had an aureolum that was using OTC aureolum eye drops. Apparently his girlfriend put her nail glue in his bag where he was keeping the aureolum drops, and he ended up putting a big glob of nail glue directly on his ocular surface. He tried to get it out, but got his fingers stuck to his eyelid. He went promptly to the ER, where they were able to remove the finger from the eyelid, but they referred the patient back to the original doc to manage the globe. The patient presented with the eye fully glued shut, with the bulk of the glue right at the tip of the aureolum, and he was in massive pain. The doc started him on Tobradex ointment, as the petroleum jelly in Tobradex ointment helps break up the bonding agents in the glue. After about an hour of Tobradex application every 10 minutes, he was still in a lot of pain. So the doc contacted an oculoplastic service who administered 5 lidocaine injections into the lids and expressed the aureolum. Then the doc cut off the eyelashes and remaining glue to the point where they got the eye open. There was a large, sharp shard of dried glue that had been causing an abrasion, hence the intense pain. His bottom lid was glued to the ocular surface, and his top lid was glued over the top of the bottom lid, almost like a sandwich. He was sent home with a bandaged contact lens and instructions. The patient came back the following evening with the abrasion almost completely resolved and relatively pain-free with 20/20 vision. And a week later, complete resolution. A doc mentioned, "I've had nail glue and super glue, but my best was a plumber who soldered his eyes shut." Wow. And to the doc who wondered if the super glue in the eye is the latest TikTok challenge, if you ask me, I'd rather eat a Tide Pod. Can you imagine being a fly on the wall in that house after you got home? "Honey, I am so mad. I can't even look at you right now. I can't look at anything either, but I especially can't look at you." And here he's considering suing the super glue company. Sounds like an open and shut case to me. Sorry, that was bad. A doc posts photos of an eye with an extremely dry, scarred, and damaged ocular surface of a patient who suffered a type of brain tumor known as an acoustic neuroma. 20 years ago, the patient underwent brain surgery to remove the tumor. What resulted was an inability for this patient to close the eye. Over the years, the eye became ulcerated, scarred, and neovascularized severely, affecting the patient's vision. The first photo below was taken about 6 months before. The doc states they started fitting the eye with a scleral lens shortly after the photo was taken. When they started, the visual acuity that patient was able to achieve was 2800 in that eye. The second photo was taken 2 months later. Now, the improvement in the appearance of the ocular surface is incredible. The third photo was taken last month, and the last photo was taken the last week. Note the gradual resolution in the scarring and the neovascularization. With the scleral lens seen in the last two photos, the patient was able to achieve 20/20 vision with all-day lens wear for the first time in 20 years. This is an example of how a well-designed and fit scleral lens can heal a damaged cornea while at the same time improving a patient's vision, quality of life, and protecting the ocular surface from the environment and the blinking action of the eyelids. Excellent work, Doc. Lots of love from the community for this case. Yes, as you could see, it was a very weird week at ODs on Facebook. I'm not even including the 10+ posts about deer found with hair-covered eyeballs. We'll leave that one alone. So we got another great show for you tonight. We have another welcome from comedian Bob Saget, a.k.a. Danny Tanner from the 90s show Full House, and more recently, Charmed. He decides to roast me in the process, but I still put it on the show. I interviewed Dr. Dorothy Hitchmoth, a nationally acclaimed professor, clinician, and expert on multi-spectral imaging. Dr. Hitchmoth shares her experience and discusses diagnostic technologies and more. Then Chris Kattan of Saturday Night Live and The Middle fame pops in to say a quick hello, and I'm very excited to land an interview with international marketing expert and rock star in the hospitality industry, Bruce Himelstein. He's famous for transforming customer service for the Ritz Carlton hotel chain. Bruce shares his expertise as it relates to growing a luxury practice. He talks about strategies we can use that he conceptualized and applied to the Ritz brand that we can apply to improve customer service and sales in our practices. And he shares fascinating insights into his personal relationship with the Marriott family and more. Please be sure to subscribe to this channel for updates. And now, on with the show.
Glazier, what the hell is fluorescene? Fluorescene? F-L-O-U-R-E, scene? What the hell is that? Are you seeing the floor? Are you drunk? Are you face down looking at the floor? Are you using flour? Is it flour scene? And then you're just baking and you're making a scene out of it. Or you're covered in flour in the street and you're making a scene and the cops come and get you and they think you're the Pillsbury Doughboy and they stick their finger in your stomach and you go, anyway.
I am excited, very excited today to welcome our next guest, Dr. Dorothy Hitchmoth. Dr. Hitchmoth has accomplished so many things in her optometric career that I had a hard time deciding what to leave out of her bio because there's only so much time in the day. Dr. Hitchmoth is a nationally recognized and award-winning doctor, professor, lecturer, and educator. She has extensive ophthalmic industry and health systems data analysis experience. She retired from her position as Chief of Optometry and Director of Optometric Residency at the Department of Veteran Affairs Hospital in New Hampshire. She's owner of a private practice in New London, New Hampshire. Dr. Hitchmoth was recently appointed to the Executive Board for the Healthcare Alliance for Patient Safety. She holds clinical professor appointments at several universities. She's a fellow of the Academy and the Optometric Retina Society. She is currently on several speakers bureaus and advisory boards, as well as the Board of Trustees at the New England College of Optometry, where I am too. Dr. Hitchmoth is recognized as the nation's expert on retinal multispectral imaging. She was awarded the AOA Advocate of the Year in 2017, the American Optometric Association's Young Optometrist of the Year, the New Hampshire Optometrist of the Year, and NECO Young Alumnus of the Year, to name a few. Dr. Hitchmoth, I am so glad to have you here with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I'm going to have to live up to my bio.
Yes, you will. You sure will.
Have something smart to say.
You do. That's why you're one of the first people we're ever interviewing. I hear you're stuck in a snowstorm today, right?
Yeah, it's fabulous though. It's really fabulous. I think we're up to 36 inches, not counting because the sunshine is out. But, we always joke up here, this is white gold. This is great for the economy. It brings a lot of business to the area. This is a real tourist attraction. So this is all good. And we're going to have a white Christmas. So it's all good.
I love that. That's why you live where you live. And I love the snow too.
Yeah.
I'm in the slush belt here. What are you going to do? We get a little bit of snow here and there, but it's much rather to have it or not, I think. Anyhow, I wanted to start by just asking you to tell us about a day in the life of a residency director at a VA hospital.
Yeah, so I retired a couple years ago from the VA, and I was the residency director for almost my entire 22-year tenure at the VA, and I loved it. It was great. The cool thing about being a residency director is you get fresh people, fresh ideas, and new docs coming through your clinic all the time. So there's like this continuous source of energy and excitement, and you get to see people just getting into their careers. You get to share your knowledge with them, and they in return teach you a lot. So it was great part of my career. I'm glad that I moved on to something different and new, and I actually have more face-to-face patient time now than I did as a residency director, and I realized I was missing that. So I love being a residency director. A day in the life is crazy busy. So yeah, it was time to retire from that. You have to be on your toes. You have to make quick decisions. Obviously I was in a hospital-based setting where infection control, which seems to be, the name of the game nowadays, was paramount. And so, the whole COVID pandemic crisis, if you will, is not a new discussion for me, but certainly one that we all need to have. But I'm glad for my time as a residency director because of the time that we're in, for sure.
Can you tell me, just to dig into that a little deeper, tell me about a time when you impacted a student's life during your directorship in terms of your ability to mentor them, or their ability or inability to learn, or something that would resonate with the audience.
Ooh, that's a hard question.
I told you I wasn't going to throw you softballs. Not throwing softballs today.
I'll have residents come back I've had residents come back to me from years ago, from 2 years ago, and thank me for sure for the experiences that they had, during their time in White River at the VA. The goal is to just really make sure that they think critically. And so that when they get out into their own practice and into the real world, they have the skills to make judgments about new technologies, new drugs, new medical situations, pandemics. That's one thing that I want them to have left from the residency program. It would be that. Sorry that my phone is going
That's
off
all
here
good.
like mad. I'm in my office. But yeah, that's the one thing that I hope they walk away with was, how do I manage a hard case when I'm not sure what's going on? How do I deal with a public health endemic, pandemic, crisis? Check all the boxes, right? What are the tools that I need to figure out how to move on in my career and continue to grow? So that's the big thing. How do I continue to grow as a provider? I had a lot of residents who went into big hospital practices, teaching situations, private practices, but some of them went off into situations where, they were the only doc in a small town and they didn't have another provider like right there with them to bounce ideas off of. And that's fine. But if you don't have that, you really want to find that, right? I mean, I know actually with ODs on Facebook, in a sense, there is that community there. I think that I would love to see more in-depth clinical exchange, but I'm biased in that regard. I'd love to see some chit chat along the Socratic method and a little bit more of that kind of exchange. So people really do learn and grow from one another if they're isolated, or maybe they don't see a lot of disease in their practice, or maybe they don't see a lot of young people, or maybe they don't see, older folks in the problems and conditions that are unique to them. So I think I answered your question, and no, that was not a softball.
No, that's excellent. We have some. It goes in waves and ODs on Facebook. We have robust clinical discussions at some points, and then it kind of veers towards private practice. Every week has a theme, which is interesting to me. And I guess there's something that happens in the industry that sets off that theme. I do the compelling clinical posts. I've hashtagged many of them, the hashtag TFT, which is a hashtag that means tales from the trenches. So, and if you type that hashtag in the search bar, it turns the whole group into the compelling clinical post for people who want to do that, who want to see more of that. So you can do that, and you can tag your own posts as well. We'd love it if the thought leaders like yourself would share that as well. So I'm going to move it along because I want to hear briefly about your board service on the Healthcare Alliance for Patient Safety. What exactly is that?
Yeah, so I did a 2-year stint on the Healthcare Alliance for Patient Safety, so that might be a slightly older bio that you had there. So that's a separate group from the AOA, though the AOA, the American Optometric Association, was the originator and original funder for that group. And the purpose of the alliance is to look for ways to make sure that the public's best interests are foremost, right? So an example of one of the projects that the Alliance worked on while I was in, and actually, quite frankly, they're still working on this, is, how to protect patients from unscrupulous contact lens seller activity. How to protect them from counterfeit contact lenses. What do you need to do to help the public understand what they need to know and how to protect their own eyes? And is there legislation that's needed, or policy or administrative change that's needed to make that happen? So that's an example.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Something
very, very relevant example for what's going on right now.
Exactly.
So, interesting. I'm going to have to do some Googling there. That's great. And you have an expertise in health systems data analysis. And no matter how old the resume I saw was, I know that experience probably has just gotten richer over the years. Tell us a little bit about that. Or exactly what that means.
So that happened by accident. You're presented with problems in your career that you have to solve or that you want to solve, right? And so this was something, I taught for Dartmouth, and I was part of and did research for the VA Dartmouth Outcomes Group. The Dartmouth Outcomes Group is really actually known all over the country now. They're the group that has looked at data for now 25 years and said, wait a minute, we're spending all this money, right? All these Medicare dollars, but in certain parts of the country, it doesn't seem that all of XYZ interventions are actually improving the quality of life of patients or extending their life. So this is known as the Dartmouth Atlas. Perhaps more political terms, the death panels, right? So this is one of the groups that said, why are we doing PSAs on men over a certain age when it's nearly 100% likely that they're going to not survive for some other reason? Why are we doing mammograms or pap smears on women who meet certain criteria when we know this is like maybe, possibly an expensive or not so expensive test? It's burning the healthcare system, but it's not helping patients have a better life. It's not extending their life. So I was totally jazzed by, these discoveries, which are now many years old. And I thought, wow, at the VA, we have this amazing data set. We have one electronic medical record and decades of information on individual veterans, regions, groups is contained in this data set. And I came to learn how to look at that data set, extract data from that, and look for ways to provide better care for veterans and, quite frankly, the public, right? So who are the people that are likely to go on to develop diabetic retinopathy? What do they look like? What are the things that are happening in their data profile that might give us some insight about how our behavior as providers might change, and how can we, it's not always about money. It's, what can we do differently for the patient? It may save money, right? And make the patient happier and make the doctor happier. So it's that kind of health data analysis that I've really come to get excited about and look for. In that same regard, did a big project for Vision Source. I helped with a grant from Medicare with the whole Vision Source network, collect some data to see what was going on with diabetes care, and also could we have a cost savings impact by diverting patients from emergency room care that really didn't need to be in the emergency room for a corneal foreign body, for an iritis, even an angle closure, an acute angle closure. What do we need to do to get those patients, from going to that point of care, which is very costly, like 5 times as costly as seeing, for example, an optometrist in an outpatient setting. So we had a lot of success by gathering that data, analyzing that data, moving forward. Now, this is the project of this is the experiment of our time, right? We've actually been doing that during the COVID pandemic, and realize this is something that is helpful and good for patients and is here to stay if we use it the right way.
So that sounds like a specialty within public health, what you were just talking about. I find that really fascinating. And it also is a great tie-in to your expertise in multi-spectral imaging. I imagine you were able to apply that, and that probably helped put you in the position of being the foremost expert in that. Would you say that's the case?
Yeah, I think it all comes together, right? I'll probably repeat this over and over again, but I feel fortunate to have accidentally developed different areas of interest and a little tiny bit of expertise. And when you know a little bit about public health, and a little bit about data, and maybe a bit about retinal imaging in general, not just multispectral imaging, but just retinal imaging in general, maybe it gives you just a little hand up in solving the clinical problems of our time, right? And so, the mission at my own private practice, I'm now in private practice. I have been for all these years too, just not this at this level, for this number of hours, I should say. I've discovered a great need right where I am. You hope you can, or what I should started saying was that the mission of our practice is prevention of vision loss. That's it. That's all I care about for the rest of my career. And if that means talking directly to the public, to give them more information, then I want to focus there. If it means helping our colleagues in any way possible by continuing to share knowledge or offering a perspective or helping people think perhaps more critically, or, keeping in mind the Socratic method, then, I'll die a little old lady quite happy.
That's so poignant. And it's something I want our listeners, especially our young ODs who are listening, to pay attention to. I spoke at NECO's graduation, and my talk was about, we go into optometry school, we trying to find a path to be an optometrist, and the point from the time you enter till you get your degree, that path is really well established. Everybody does the same thing to get it, and so when they leave optometry school, they're often looking for the path to follow for their career. But there is no path. You blaze a trail. You took your education and you applied your interest and expertise in something else and came up with this niche. And I did the same thing. I took my education, I took my passion for marketing and internet, and I built, I connected the industry. So these are the people who are able to do that often have really interesting careers, and they are able to elevate that to high levels where they're able to share their knowledge and their experiences in a different way than people who don't.
Yeah. celebrating that is important. I mean, the platform that you created, in my opinion, is amazing, right? And I'm not just saying that because you're interviewing me, but but it is, it's a place. I think it's been a generally safe place for people to exchange ideas. I do see a lot of collegiality and, quite frankly, just politeness and kindness and encouragement. And those things are really important. And I'm grateful for that. So, when I pinged you, I'm like, hey, we got to talk about XYZ. I'm always happy to have an invite on your platform, quite frankly, because it's an important one. And if nobody else says it there, I just said it. So there you go.
Well, thank you. That's kind of you. I'm honored to have you there as well. As a matter of fact, when I was preparing for the interview, I was thinking about how we met, and we met around a really interesting technology, an imaging technology, the ClearPath, which is a device that measures the glycation end products in the lens of the eye, and could, in many cases, detect diabetes before a physician could ever detect it in the blood. It was a fascinating device. I know that the company had some challenges, and it ended up as a coat rack in my office, but a very expensive coat rack. But I love that device. So that's where we met. Is that company still around?
They're not still around, but it's funny that you mentioned that, because this is going to happen. This is what happens. That's still an to me, that was a potentially a really amazing potential public health intervention that we could have had in our offices. I think there's a whole bunch of reasons it didn't continue on in the market. And not everybody succeeds, right? There's innovation left, right, center, all over the place. But I will tell you, there's a company I'm involved in now called Percept. I didn't tell you I was going to mention this, but Percept has several dozen patents. And they, here's what I can say, they will have devices, let's just say that, devices and platforms that optometrists specifically will be well positioned to use, and that consumers will want, that will be able to measure not just lens glycation, but how about blood sugar? How about pulse? How about metabolic changes that help figure out, who's at risk for imminent heart attack? That's some crazy stuff, right? And looking for those biomarkers through this right here. We all know that we have this special view. Every single one of us that looks through the pupil of the eye knows that we see something that's extraordinary and telling, that there are biomarkers that we can see that others can't. And this is indeed a portal to the body. So being able to extract even more stuff from, our face and our eyes is so exciting to me. And, it's just, we're gonna have things that will save patients' lives and will save their function. And it's just going to be a whole new world. I'm excited about all of it.
Me too. I'm glad you brought up Percept. I'm on the board as well. And it seems like the application of their technology is limitless in terms of inside and outside of healthcare, gaming capacities and things like that. So I'm very eager to see where that goes too. And now that I know you're on that, we'll have to download about that off of the interview as well. Yeah. Fascinating. It sounds very Jetsons, like you put something on and you get 90% of all the health information you would need. I love that. And
we're totally headed towards that. And it's going to be from data. It's going to be from biosensors. It's just, it's just going to be unbelievable. And I think it's going to funnel patients to our offices that really need help, and, help us sort out the public health problems of our time. Like we can't even imagine,
Right.
It's going to be awesome. Yeah.
Amazing. I know today, and thank you for that. I know today we wanted to get to a topic that is a soapbox for both of us. It's critical thinking skills and how to apply them, not only in optometry, but in the real world. I don't think we're going to have enough time for that today. So would you come back to the community and talk to us about critical thinking and with me at some point?
Yeah, definitely. And I know we wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of getting the COVID vaccine. And I think that those two things are a perfectly connected conversation. I'd love to do it.
Excellent. We'll do that sooner rather than later. We have the holidays coming up sometime, maybe in early January. Real quick, tell us about your family, because last time I saw you, you had some really exciting news, and maybe share it with us.
I have a granddaughter, but she's now 1. I don't know where the last year went. And the best thing about that little baby girl, her name is Zoe, is that she's the most beautiful redhead I've ever seen.
That's awesome.
I have 3 boys, so this is finally our girl. So that's our excitement for.
It's like
for the year.
like your newlyweds for 1 year. When you still have a newborn for the first year, also, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I saw her picture. She was absolutely lovely. You're right, she's gorgeous, and congratulations on that. And I want to thank you for coming today, and I look forward to us talking again on the Fluorescene cast.
Yes, thank you, Alan. It's my pleasure.
All right, take care, Dorothy. Good talking with you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Hello, everyone. This is Chris Kattan. That's right. Not Ryan Gosling, not Jake Gyllenhaal, but Chris Kattan. Wait, what? No, I'm not him either. Alan, thanks for having me on the Fluorescene Show. I love eyes. I love eye docs. I love glasses. I love the eye care industry in general. And just want to say, enjoy the rest of the show.
Hello and welcome to Fluorescene Show, Episode 7, News Segment. In eye care research news, loci are considered genetic street addresses denoting a specific location on a gene. In the largest genome-wide association study of glaucoma, comparing the genes of 34,000 people to 349,000 control subjects, an international consortium of researchers identified 44 new gene loci and confirmed 83 previously reported loci linked to glaucoma. The study's authors hope identification of these genes will lead to new treatment targets for glaucoma. For the first time in a glaucoma genome-wide association study, a cross-ancestry comparison was performed looking at genetic data from people of European, African, and Asian descent. The researchers found the majority of loci that contribute to glaucoma were consistent across all 3 groups. Previous studies had mostly looked at gene data from people of European descent. Researchers are hopeful that understanding the biological processes and knowing which genes control them could help scientists develop new drugs in the future. Essilor announced that Bernard Maitenaz, the inventor of the Varilux progressive lens, has passed away in his home city of Paris at the age of 94. Mr. Maitenaz's pioneering work revolutionized the eye care industry and transformed people's lives. Frustrated with limitations of his father's bifocals and determined to improve his father's life by improving his sight, Bernard, who was then a 33-year-old engineer at La Société des Lunetières in 1959, took on the task of creating a lens that would provide presbyopes with comfortable vision at any distance. Bernard Maitenaz graduated with degrees in engineering from both Arts et Métiers in 1946 and École Supérieure d'Optique in 1947. To date, more than 700 million Varilux lenses have been sold since 1959, and his pioneering work became the basis for an entire technology for presbyopes worldwide. Researchers conducted a randomized, double-masked, controlled study to evaluate the safety, efficacy, and tolerability of Novaliq, the first drug developed to treat dry eye disease associated with meibomian gland dysfunction. Novaliq is composed of 100% perfluorohexyloctane. According to the data, total corneal fluorescein staining decreased in Novaliq regimens to a higher degree than the saline control groups, with 4 times a day dosing showing larger decreases than the 2 times a day dosing. Increased symptom relief was seen more frequently with the 4 times a day dosing than with the 2 times a day Novaliq dosing. Researchers concluded that the safety and tolerability of Novaliq treatment could lead to advances in the clinical management of dry eye disease. The product is in late-stage clinical development. There have been studies evaluating binocular vision in several neurological diseases, but not in multiple sclerosis. Considering that a high percentage of eye movement anomalies have been reported in subjects with multiple sclerosis, the aim of this study was to analyze binocular vision in these subjects. They concluded that alterations in binocular vision were present in multiple sclerosis with divergence at near, distance, and stereopsis the most affected parameters. Likewise, MS patients with optic neuritis showed worse binocular vision, as might be expected. A study evaluated the hypothesis that increased plasma apolipoprotein A1 and HDL cholesterols and LDL cholesterols are correlated with an elevated risk of age-related macular degeneration. This study's findings revealed that increased plasma apolipoprotein A1, higher HDLs, and lower LDLs are correlated with an elevated risk of age-related macular degeneration. In Facebook news, Facebook is still set to release its smart glasses later this year. Its head of AR and VR said this Thursday. They might include facial recognition technology, but only if privacy concerns can be addressed. Facebook is working with Ray-Ban parent company Luxottica to make the augmented reality glasses. The company has been developing its AR smart glasses since at least 2017. And that's all for the news this week. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for more of the Fluorescene Show.
We are extremely fortunate to have Bruce Himelstein join us today. Bruce is an internationally recognized marketing expert and rock star in the hospitality industry. He's a recognized authority on innovative brand marketing and creation of a luxury lifestyle image for the highest quality services and consumer products. Bruce transformed customer service for one of the world's most recognizable luxury brands, as featured prominently in the New York Times bestseller, The New Gold Standard. Mr. Himelstein is founder and CEO of the BJH Group. He served as the chief marketing officer of Lowe's Hotels and Resorts International and president of Oceania Cruises. Prior to that, he served as executive vice president of Kerzner International. He served as the senior sales and marketing officer at the Ritz Carlton Hotel Company. Mr. Himelstein is a 2017 inductee of the American Marketing Association Hall of Fame. He serves on many boards in the hospitality industry, and he's regular featured speaker on Sirius XM. Bruce has been recognized by the hospitality industry as one of the international top 25 most extraordinary minds. His work has received accolades from the Wall Street Journal, and he's the recipient of the Platinum Award from the Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association. Bruce now helps businesses in different industries achieve new levels of success as a marketing and luxury brand consultant, as well as a business facilitator, and lectures on thriving in disruption and the power of innovation. Perfect topics for our viewers in this show. So welcome, Bruce.
Thank you. My goodness, I can't wait to hear me.
You pay me well to make you look good.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you, Alan.
I'll wait for that check in the mail.
Yeah.
How's it going down there? Bruce is in Florida.
Yeah.
And a previous neighbor and patient of mine, and that's how I got to know him. And he's got so much to add, and I have so many questions for you today. So I'm going to just dig right into it. I wanted to start, just as I do with most of my interviews, to have our viewers know a little bit about you personally, like where you grew up, where you went to school, and lead that into the path where you are today.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Albany, New York, and graduated one of the SUNY schools, Geneseo. And after I graduated with a communication degree, I literally faced about 6 months of no thank you, there's nothing here. I was going for any kind of radio, television production kind of a role. And after 6 months of rejection, I just, my parents said, you probably ought to go do something to earn money. So I applied to this little hotel in Albany, and became a housekeeper. I figured how hard can that be, making beds? And well, I got fired after 2 days because they actually have a checklist, Alan, of about 18 things that you have to do to clean a room before you turn it over to the next guest. I was averaging doing maybe 2. So they didn't like that, but they liked me. And so they asked me to be a bellman. And so I became a bellboy and came home with, pockets of singles and quarters, and was able to take my girlfriend, now my wife of 4 years, out to a movie here and there. And that, it was an accidental career. It just, it's something that I latched onto. I fell in love with the hotel business. I fell in love with the whole notion of what it is. And, the rest of it, as they say. So it's been a fun ride.
Do any pictures of you exist in that bellboy monkey suit? Because
yeah, you know what? It's funny you ask that because it was a colonial themed hotel. And so I had the Americana Inn was the name of it. And I had on knickers and stockings and buckle shoes and a big lace, a scarf. It was embarrassing, but there is a picture floating around that I'm very confident you will never see.
and it's a good thing the guys in the neighborhood didn't see it either.
No.
When I was doing my research for this interview, I came across what's described as your transformational strategy that is described as blowing the dust off the lion and the crown that turned around the Ritz Carlton organization. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it was an interesting thing. What happened is at the time I was vice president of sales for Marriott. I spent 30 years at Marriott. And so one of the roles that I had was leading the sales organization for the company. And then one day we got a call that said, be at the chairman's boardroom at 11 o'clock, Chairman B and Bill Marriott, for an announcement. And I made that pay grade cutoff where I got the invite. And he said, as of midnight last night, we concluded the deal and we bought the Ritz Carlton Hotel Company. And so, it blew our doors off. We were this meat and potatoes hotel company with Residence Inns and Courtyards and Marriotts and Town Place Suites. And now we were thrown into the luxury segment of business. And I was fortunate enough to be selected to go over and be the chief marketing officer for the brand. And so when I came in, all the existing Ritz-Carlton guys were still there, and they built this incredible, iconic global brand. But they kind of looked at us like we were the Beverly Hillbillies. Here come the Marriott guys, and I traveled the world for about 30 days, just sitting in lobbies, trying to understand what I had just agreed to. I knew the hotel business, and I assumed the luxury hotel business was just more expensive rooms and lace and tablecloths, but no, it was a very different customer. It's a different price point, a different set of expectations, a different level of loyalty. And I just sat for 30 days and listened. I just watched in lobbies around the world and took notes. When I came back, I dove into the data, which is, by the way, the best salesperson you can have if you want to make changes in an organization is just show them data. And so I showed the executive committee of the company that our average customer was a 68-year-old white male, and that that was probably not a sustainable demographic, that people were intimidated coming into the doors of a Ritz-Carlton if they weren't dressed right, if they didn't feel like they belonged in this certain mold. And, we weren't staying relevant. And so I fired the agency that we had for 12 years. I hired a new one. We started redesigning our hotels. We started doing some very different marketing. And we wanted to shift the profile of the customer, and it worked. So, in a nutshell, I just gave you 8 years and 3 minutes, but that was kind of what happened.
Well, that's really interesting, and it's super relevant to what's going on in optometry today. The independent optometrists have seen, you took a middle-end brand and added on a high-end brand, the highest, and made it work. And the optometrists today, we've seen a market shift. Maybe it's been the past 10 to 15 years it's been occurring that's made it more difficult to compete in the middle end of the market. And as a result, a lot of us have had to shift to offering more high-end products and more high-end services. And it's largely due to the competition that we've seen from big box stores and online retailers. So as far as practices upping their game, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, it's funny you say that. When I joined the company, we had 38 hotels. When I left, we had 120. So we were on a tear from a development standpoint. But we had a market share premium in every place that we had a Ritz-Carlton hotel. That includes 2 hotels where the owners had refused to put in any capital for a long time. And that was Dearborn and St. Louis. We were not the best looking hotel in those markets, but we commanded a market share. And the reason is that we outserviced everybody. So you had this sense of loyalty, of recognition, because you were treated much better than anywhere else you went, even though we weren't the shiniest and we weren't the best from I mean, there was duct tape on some carpeting, and we were still asking you to check into a Ritz Carlton. You know, the business model is the Ritz Carlton doesn't own any of the hotels. They manage them for owners. So whether it's a private equity group or a teacher's fund, the developer finds the land where they want to build the hotel, then they start interviewing brands for who they want to run it. And so, you know, we sent out lots of warning notices to these two particular owners, and it took a while, but they never lost market share because of the insane level of customer service that they had in their DNA. And so when you can up your customer service level with unscripted and unplanned just moments of, you know, oh my God, that was amazing. You know, you start doing the market share thing.
Yeah. Meeting expectations isn't good enough anymore. You have to exceed them.
No. Yeah. And, you know, you and I were chatting a little bit ago that, you know, Bridget and I, my wife, were in a restaurant the other night. And, you know, the restaurant industry, unfortunately, is going through a very tough time. And you would think that every person walking through the door of a restaurant would be treated like gold, right? Because you want them forever. We had something occur the other night that hasn't occurred for us in years. The chef came out at the end of our dinner and asked us how we liked it. And it blew my mind. You know, my antennas for service are heightened, obviously, for what I've gone through, which is dangerous when you go through your everyday life and apply that standard. But
and it's scary for us seeing someone like you.
But I am wearing glasses, Alan.
Yes.
But this chef came out and just, you know, the meal was probably a B. But the fact that he did that and thanked us and asked us questions if we were local and blah, blah, we're going to go back because we found a friend. And so it took that just little 5-minute visit to the table to take a B meal and make it an A experience.
And that was like nothing, you know, I mean,
yeah.
Why can't we all do that?
Right.
I assume that has something to do with the new gold standard. And this is a book that you've contributed to, a New York Times bestseller. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So the author, Dr. Joseph Michelli, who's become a good friend, he wrote a book called The Starbucks Experience. It was his first book. And he did a deep dive into that brand. And his book exploded, became a #1 seller on New York Times list. And then he approached us and said, I want to make the Ritz Carlton my next topic. And we turned him down probably 3 times because that just that wasn't our DNA to, you know, write a book about us. And we like to fly below the radar in terms of a culture, you know,
it's risky.
Yeah, let the mystique kind of take care of the business. And we don't need to do the chest thumping. We let our customers do that. But he came back and just made a compelling case that, look, what you guys have done simply is something that it's a story that needs to be told. And so we relented and we said, sure. And he highlighted the campaign and the shift of the positioning of the brand that my team did as part of that book. And, you know, the Wall Street Journal picked up on it, and it became a bigger thing than any of us thought at the time. The work we were doing was the work that we knew needed to be done. But he chronicled everything that we did, and it was pretty cool.
Well, reinvigorating a brand was no small thing, especially a brand like that, which, you know, has the highest expectations just when you look at the name. What's important for the companies in our industry in 2021 to think about when it comes to their brand?
Well, there's two pieces, I think, to a successful brand: A, your product, and B, your service. I mean, and you know, product, I guess you can make a case here and there that, you know, you control 100% of the product. I'm not sure your guys can in every instance because they don't actually make the glasses, but you have 100% control over your service. Nobody can do anything about that but you. So if you haven't shopped your competition physically and online and done kind of a deep dive on who you're competing with, you're probably not prepared to do 100% of what you could do. So what I advise my clients is, let's take a look at what the other guys are doing, just so we understand how we cut through the clutter of all that. And most of that's a pretty eye-opening, no pun intended, exercise. And I used to do it at Ritz Carlton. 72 hours a year, I took my team out to a competitor's hotel with my agencies, and we lined the walls with all of their advertising. And we stepped back and just ripped everything open. What are they better at than we are? What are we not good at? And it helped us put our marketing plan together. So if you're a 2-person office, you still need a plan. Or if you're a 12-person or a 20-person, you still need a plan. And take a look at your business and take a look at what your competition's doing. Always be aware of that.
And coming out of the pandemic, is there anything additional you would add in this special circumstance we're in?
Well, listen, treat every, there's a difference between a transaction and a relationship. If you're going to keep doing transactions, you'll be treated as such. If you develop relationships with your customers, they give you hall passes on lots of stuff because they really like you. Back to my chef story, not to embarrass you, but I remember my first visit to your office, and I remember being greeted by your receptionist and asked, how. I mean, she engaged. So there was eye contact, and she engaged. And granted, you and I, are friends, and you came out and said, "How are you doing? And you ready to come in?" I mean, it felt like I was sitting in a friend's office, not like I was in some office. And the more you can create that environment, look at all the touch points that the customers are gonna hit before they walk in and when they leave. And do you have all of those, embraced? Are they the best you can make all of them? So that's what you control 100% of that experience.
Thanks for the compliment. I always tried to minimize any barriers, as I call them, between my patients and my staff. And that went from not having a typical reception desk to having people walk out around and greet them, and even having the doctors do that. So thanks for bringing that up. That's that little touch that's exceeding expectations, and coming from you, that means a lot. One of the reasons I asked you to come on, and I think we talked about this, is because having seen you speak, knowing your expertise, and seeing what our industry has, we really could use a consultant like you to up everyone's game, especially the companies in our industry who serve us and are our partners. The little guy. How can you maybe tell the viewers a little bit about the companies in our industry who are watching this might benefit from your knowledge and expertise?
Well, yeah, almost there's no template really. I mean, everybody that I continue to work with that reaches out to me, you kind of step back, and what you don't want to do is just pull the guns out and start. Go do this, go do this. You really got to step back and listen and understand where the priorities are and what success looks like. And, it's back to when I was fortunate enough to be selected to go into Ritz Carlton. I didn't go in and say, "Hey, we ought to start doing this, and you guys aren't doing that right, and we ought to really go." I had no credibility with these guys other than I came from the company that just bought them. But I had a lot of credibility after I listened for a while, and I came back armed with the voice of the customer in my head. And I understood more of what the customer wanted and how either we were delivering on it or we weren't delivering on it. And the good news is that there's never a stake in the ground that can't be pulled up and moved. So it just because you say, "Hey, it ought to be this," well, yeah, but maybe it'll shift and it'll evolve. What you don't want to do, and what I could have done to absolutely blown this thing, was take a pendulum and swing it all the way over to the other side. You have to make incremental shifts in what it is you do, because the organization has to absorb whatever change you're gonna agree to. there also has to be a coalition of support within your employees. They all have to understand what success looks like. I came back from an organization. I was invited to this board of directors out in the Midwest, and they were really dysfunctional. And they brought me in to try to peel it back a little bit. And what I found is that they all couldn't articulate what success looked like. They all had different visions of what it is that at the end of the day, this is where we ought to go. And until you line everybody up, whether they're frontline workers or they're back of the house washing dishes, doesn't matter. You know, Bill Marriott used to get up at 3 in the morning when he stayed at one of the hotels that I worked at, just so he could spend time with the overnight crew in the kitchen. And he's legendary for that. You know, his father built the company from a root beer stand, a 6-seat root beer stand. And his father would get up at 3 in the morning to ask the dishwashers and the overnight cooks how they were doing and what it is he could do for them. So leadership's real important. Setting the tone for your business is real important. And again, having everybody lined up and aligned against what success looks like.
Well, that was one of my outro question for you was what was Bill Marriott like? And you just answered that. And personally, you knew him as well. Tell us a little bit about him as a person.
You know, it's funny. I spoke to him. He was down here. He spends every Christmas at the Harbor Beach Marriott, which is a hotel I opened in 1984. And he brings his family every Christmas. So we got to have dinner with him every year, and obviously all the in-person interactions back at the office. But he is well, I'll give you a classic story. When one of his first visits to Harbor Beach after we opened, we had 2 company vehicles. We had a limousine and we had a station wagon. And we went with both to the airport to pick up his family, station wagon for the luggage, limousine for the chairman. And he wouldn't get in the limousine. And he said, I'm going in the station wagon. I'm not pulling up to that hotel because I know you've got every employee lined up to welcome me, and I'm not getting out of a limousine. And that's Bill Marriott. You know, that's just who he is. Last story, Alan, when I celebrated my 25th anniversary, you're now a member of the Quarter Century Club of Marriott, which has a lot of great lifelong benefits to it. But they held a party for me at the Ritz Carlton headquarters, and he attended. And he didn't typically attend those, but he came over and attended it for me and gave an amazing speech. But what blew my mind is that I hope I get through this. They flew my dad in as a surprise. And so my dad got to watch the chairman of the Marriott company talk about his son. And the 2 of them shook hands afterwards. I have pictures of all of it. And it was that there's just no greater, you know, moment in my life than that one that Bill Marriott made happen. And so I'm forever grateful.
Wow. That is some story.
Yeah.
That's a great thing to wrap this up with. Thanks for being here. This is just the beginning. I'd love to have you back. I know I'm going to get a ton of questions from people that they want to ask, so maybe we'll arrange that at some point. For those who are viewing this and are wondering, Bruce is available for lectures, keynote speeches, thought leadership, facilitation, consults on a wide variety of business and marketing related topics. And did I leave anything out, Bruce?
No, man, just listen, you and I go back a long way. I value the friendship, and I appreciate you having me on.
You're the best, man. I miss you. We'll see you soon. I'll be down in Florida in April. And actually, I've stayed at that Marriott too. That won't be where I am this time, but we'll definitely have to connect. And you stay safe. Say hi to Bridget, and we'll talk again real soon.
See you, buddy.